Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is 2025 and your boy is back like I'm never left. Let me just tell you that I am so happy and grateful for everything and everyone that we worked with, that we collaborated with in 2024. I am so happy and grateful for how badly the IRS treated me because it prepared me for today's interview. I am so happy and grateful for all those individuals who have done business with us the right way. And some of you have stiffed us last year. I got to tell you, I got somebody that you're going to consider the love and the abundance of information that we're going to give you. My name is Ali Mehdaoui. We are in the ME studios, and this is the ME show. And I have an incredible human being. And I know that you're used to edification and speaking into somebody's bio, but I want to talk to you from the heart. I got to witness her greatness back in 2020 when she came into our lives into a project that we were building virtually and globally. And, you know, she came in into one of our challenges as an expert when it comes to taxes. But little by little, I started identifying certain pieces as this ain't somebody who's playing a facade or faking herself for the sake of getting clientele. She's as real can get. She's a true professional who knows everything as far as the ins and outs on not only the tax code, the tax laws, but the tax resolution as well. And she's even launching her own boot camp to help many individuals across these United States of America. She's also a amazing human being. She looks like she graduated college 3 years ago, but she's a grandma, she's a mom, she's an unbelievable woman of God. She has her own ministry, and I cannot wait for you to hear her full story. So, ladies and gentlemen, give a whole lot of love, a whole lot of virtual love to the one and only Dr. Katrina Ferguson. What's going on, sis?
Hey, so glad to be here. Good to see you. What's happening?
A whole lot. Let me just tell you, look, I'm going to be real with you. I'm going to be getting a complimentary consultation out of you on behalf of all of our listeners. Because let me just say, the last couple of years, we all got our butt kicked. And the truth of the matter is, I think it's time for us to get educated. I remember we had a gentleman last year by the name of Jamari James, and he would tell me ignorance is $1 billion industry. And that is absolutely true because I didn't know a lot of things that I didn't know about the tax system, about what it means to be in certain tax brackets, what it means to be in certain registrations and certain documentation that you needed to have or don't need to have. And it got me into some financial trouble. Nothing legally, thank God, but my ignorance costed me a lot of money, just about $160,000 in 2024 alone. So if that didn't get your attention, ladies and gentlemen, pay attention. Right. Now, before we get into the goodies, first and foremost, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background. How did we get this greatness of a human being that you are? I know that there's a story behind the story.
Oh, you're awesome. Thank you so much. I actually got started as an entrepreneur. I was 17 years old is when I realized that I didn't want to work for anybody my whole life. And I actually became a consultant for a company. I don't even know if I can say the name of it or whatever. But I lied on the application because I was like, okay, if I can have all my time and still make money, I was interested. So I got started in the direct sales industry at 17, went through some companies, top position all the time, just because I understand what it is to win friends and influence people. Got to a point where I was with a company that literally is where I made my first $1 million. Me and my friends were running around the country telling people about how powerful it was to have, an attorney in your pocket. I always wanted to be an attorney because I felt like people who couldn't afford them were mistreated in court. So I grew up thinking I was going to go to law school, but then I looked at all the hours and it's like I'm not going to leave school with $250,000 of debt. Not happening. So I did the next best thing. Well, we were running around making all this money, right? Within the first 3 years, I was making well over six figures, had earned $1 million as a part of this company, had a corporate position, the whole 9 yards. What nobody did, though, Ali, was talk to me about the fact that we had to change our tax position because I was no longer a single parent mom getting an earned income credit so that I could get this huge refund. I was a 6-figure plus income earner who didn't even know about all the things I could write off to get my income down so that I would owe less taxes, wasn't trying to cheat the system, just had no idea. And the tax preparer that we went to, we all went to the same tax preparer. He did our taxes and I was getting a refund. I didn't owe. I was good, keeping it moving. Well, we started getting these love letters from the IRS. I call it.
Is that what we're calling them?
Yeah, these love letters came, and everybody was owing like 100 grand here, 80 grand here. Personally, mine said I owed $60,000 in back taxes. Now I was making good money, but I was still kind of catching up from when I wasn't making really good money. And I watched my friends go through their audit processes, and they were coming out with these humongous payment plans. Oh, I'm only paying $6,000 a month. What do you mean only? I got kids at home, some trying to go to school, some in private school. Oh, it was just the official definition of stress for me. But I also knew that I wasn't trying to cheat. And I'd been to some seminars that said things like, it's what you keep that counts. So I knew there had to be a way. I read some books like from Robert Kiyosaki, and there's a reason why the rich get richer, right? Why are the poor paying all the taxes? What is really happening here? So I decided I wasn't just going to take this, I was going to fight for it. It took a year of gathering receipts, credit card statements, giving statements from the charitable organizations that I had sewn into. 12 binders later, I walk into the audit, and the auditor looks at me and she says, "What's all this?" I said, "You asked me to prove my expenses." It was over $60,000 of expenses. At that time, my travel budget was more than most people's income.
Mm-hmm.
To prove it, here's all the proof. I even had flyers for the events I was speaking at, along with the boarding passes and the airline tickets and the credit card. Like, I had not tried to cheat. I wanted justice. So we went in, and instead of me owing them $60,000, Ali, I came out, they owed me $1,100.
Ain't that crazy?
Yeah. So I was sitting here like, okay. But she would say things like, "You can't write that off." And I would say, "Yes, I can." She said, "No, you can't." And I said, "Well, your IRS code number, blah, 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 right here is what it says that I can." She was like, "Oh, I didn't know that." Well,
Oh my God. So when the IRS auditor, you're telling me your IRS auditor had no idea of what you actually found in the tax code?
Yes.
Okay. So how did that go?
So she quit after me. She retired. So we went through this whole process of every time. She would say, "Show me the receipt that goes with this credit card statement from the Office Depot, and you better not even have a candy bar on it." I mean, she was amazing. Came out. They owed me money. I'm thinking, it's over. It's done. They're not going to bother me anymore. They know I'm not trying to cheat. How about they came back the next year? $34,000. This time they ended up owing me $800. And the last question the auditor asked me, he said, "I mean, do you live with somebody who pays all your bills?" And I said, "No." He said, "Then how is it that you survive on this amount of money?" I said, "It's amazing how the Lord provides." Because everything I had was lined up. It was all laid out. But after the second time, I started thinking, if this is happening to me, then it's happening to other people too.
Yeah.
And I've always started businesses. I am a serial entrepreneur. Every business that I've ever started has come out of a need in my life that someone else was not going to meet. Because when I got that audit letter, nobody would help me. I couldn't find the preparer that did the tax return in the first place. It was off season. He was not interested. There was not a CPA I could find that was going to take over a $60,000 tax issue back then.
And my favorite part, like when I was going through my phase of like, oh my God, I gotta get somebody to help. Oh no, well, you didn't do your taxes with us last year, therefore we can't help you mid-year, or I'm given, you need to prepare all these documents and all these different things, and when you have it all, I'm like, if I could do that, I wouldn't have reached out to you. So the other thing that I mean, fascinating that you just talked about is the fact that the IRS immediately start with terror letters. It's like, we're going to levy and we're going to send you to jail and so the fear added with the ignorance leads for us for most of the time to be like, here, just take my money. We don't even contest it.
Exactly. And that's why she was surprised to see me coming, Because most of the time when people get these letters, it's like, okay, I owe this. All I got to do is make a payment plan. I'll pay it for the rest of my life. Just leave me alone. I'm afraid. And you cannot be afraid of the IRS. You really cannot. You just have to be patient. You have to be patient and understand that it's a big machine. It moves very slowly, but there's always a way around, through, over. There's always a way, and you don't stop trying until you get what you want. So that's what I've had to do for myself. Even as recently as 2 weeks ago, I got a letter saying that for one of my businesses, we hadn't filed a certain tax return and we owed $2,400 a month for a year because they didn't have it. Of course you got it. You lost it in the warehouses back in COVID when nobody was working and you didn't know what to do with the returns. Nobody was processing them. So because you lost it, I'm paying? No. But there are people who would have just stroked a check. Me, I'm going to go find it, prove that I sent it, call the right person, which means sometimes talking to several people until we get to the resolution that I believe is the best one.
How
So
much confidence do you feel you've gained from that experience, and it kind of emboldens you to say, if I can stand up for myself and go from a 60 plus $1,000 deficit to a 2,400 or an $800 surplus,
1,100 they owed me.
1,100, I will not discount you. How like did that put an impact on your career? And that was that the moment that you said, "This is what I'm going to do"? Because you've mentioned the lawyer mindset to help people who couldn't, and then that experience that gave you the light bulb of like, there's got to be other people who are going through the same thing. When did that become a decision to initiate a career out of it?
Well, it's kind of one of those everything coming together moments where a friend of mine who had a tax office in Texas needed some assistance with some business taxes. So I was literally just kind of doing some input stuff for him from, my home office, just helping him out. So that when this audit came, even though he was like way in Texas saying, well, do this, do that, he wasn't willing to put his name on anything, which is another conversation. You probably shouldn't go to a tax professional who won't sign the returns that they do. It's not a good look. It's an indication
Oh
that they
boy,
don't
I'll tell you
know what
about
they're
that.
doing. Huh?
I gotta tell you about that. So that's let me give you some context because when I say I have a personal experience with this interview, um, the person that started doing my taxes was when I was very young and early in my business career. And every year was, oh, you're doing good, you're doing good, you're doing good, you're doing good. Quarterly taxes looking great,
Yeah,
quarterly.
yeah,
But then we boomed and grew in our income, but never changed anything. We've never changed from LLC to an S corp. We're just like, oh, business as usual. And the beginning of last year, we get a mega like hit, like on every way that you can think. You can't, you can't, you can't, you can't. But then when I went back to him, hey, you signed them. I was just assisting you. And that, my
oh,
friend,
doesn't
was
that
the
drive
very
you
first lesson.
bananas?
Yeah.
That drove me bananas. That's exactly because the second year I didn't go back to that same tax preparer. Obviously, I went to an actual CPA to do my taxes, and the IRS did not care. When I said to them, I didn't do them, I just signed them. They're like, yeah, but you signed them. I am
Correct.
not, at the time, I was not a tax professional. How am I supposed to know if what's in the return is real? I'm trusting this person who also
Mhm.
has E&O insurance. So why don't you lean on that instead of leaning on me as a helpless taxpayer in America? Like it was the worst scenario ever that nobody really wanted to stand up for us. There's a very small number of professionals out there who are really willing to go to bat for someone else. With the IRS. It's a very small number of us
Yeah.
out there.
Well, I'm happy to hear that you are one of those small numbers. So where from with that phase to where you are now, how did you expand? What is the capacity that you handle? Do you work nationally or just
Yeah.
in your state? Tell me about that.
So it started, like I said, I'm in the basement doing some little taxes for another company out of Texas. Then I came to Florida to work with a friend of mine. And even though the compensation plan was not all that great, I was still able in 6 months to create like $15,000 of income. 6 months, 6 weeks,
Right.
6 weeks to 15 grand. And then I came back the following year and doubled it. Well, the third year I started my own and doubled that, and it hasn't been that bad since. So we've been in business brick and mortar for about 7 years just here. and another 8 years of working with other people. Combined, my partners and I have over 100 years of experience working in the tax industry, specializing in small business, which is crucial if you're a business owner. Like if you had to have heart surgery, you would not go to a podiatrist, right? If you have real estate, if you have cryptocurrency, if you're a small business owner, you want to go to someone who specializes in whatever area of taxation you find your concern. Why is that important? It's important because the tax code changes constantly. And if you're not, there's no way for a single individual to keep up with all of the changes in all of the different areas of law, of tax law. So you need someone who has got their finger on the pulse of where it is that you find yourself so that you can make sure that you are minimizing your tax liabilities. And if you're entitled to a refund or a return, that you're getting the maximum amount, keyword being legally.
That's beautiful. Have we gotten your attention so far? Because we're about to take a little bit of a commercial break, but when I come back in, we're going to dive all in on everything from tax resolution to tax mistakes to biggest tax tips that you need to know and a few different hacks that we need to get. So please stick around with us. By the way, we got some giveaways, so you do not want to drop out of this episode. Please, please, please stick around. We're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back.
Introducing Dr. Katrina Ferguson, a powerhouse of skills and certifications. With a doctorate in divinity, a business administration background, and expertise in Salesforce, curriculum design, mediation, life coaching, and tax strategy, she's the ultimate career coach. Whether you're climbing the corporate ladder or building your own empire, Dr. Ferguson has the tools to skyrocket your professional growth. Don't let your potential go untapped. Reach out and let's turn your career dreams into reality.
Meet Dr. Katrina Ferguson, the ultimate career chameleon. With a diverse background spanning a doctorate in divinity, Salesforce expertise, mediation, life coaching, and even ordained ministry, she's a true multi-talented professional. Whether you're looking to level up your leadership, dive into data analytics, or explore tax strategies, Dr. Ferguson is your go-to guru. Her incredible journey proves that with the right skills and mindset, you can conquer any professional mountain and become the next career superhero.
I know you are impressed as I am, and I hope that you take the time. If you're driving, don't do it right now, but make sure you visit Dr. Katrina's website so you can go ahead and get a consultation or get exactly what you need and you desire based on your circumstance. Now, keep in mind, all the information that we're about to share with you right now is for education and entertainment purposes as well. So always, always consult with your tax expert in your local city and or state because we don't want you to just act on a conversation that we might not even be fully aware with your full circumstances and the variables that is in your situation. All right, Dr. Katrina, welcome back. I appreciate you giving me this exclusive, and I want to dig into the very first thing, if I may, resolution. So
Yes.
tax resolution is an important element that we need to be educated on. Now, not for nothing, I've heard about it in commercials. You know, do you owe more than $10,000 in taxes, yada, 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 for years, right? And then you hear about the celebrities who you're like, they made millions of dollars. How can they have tax problems? And celebrities who end up in jail, like Wesley Snipes, like how could he end up in jail for tax purposes, right? All these different things mixed up. And then you bring the general population ignorance of what we don't know. And then we make a lot of mistakes. So I've mentioned before the break a little bit about my circumstance. One of the few things that we got audited and then challenged and then money taken out, et cetera, was that we were an LLC and we grew our business and we had staff. And again, we were told, oh, just do this, do this. I'm like, sure, just tell me what to do. And then I was employee number one in my own company getting a W-2, and my wife was W-2 as well, and everybody else as far as staff and teams. And that's a double dipping issue that we did not know if you don't have an S Corp, right? So another thing was the write-offs. How could you justify your business if you are working from home? And I didn't have the right documentation for everything. We had an Excel spreadsheet, but not with the right variables and dates, times, the reason why, et cetera, et cetera. So all these different things that were pure ignorance to what we needed to know and or potentially having the right person. So let's dig with all of that. Let me dump it and talk about the number one to top 5 things that I, as a business owner, need to be aware of or know or do in order not to find myself in a circumstance that gets me in trouble with the IRS. What would you share?
So first and foremost, the number one challenge that even I have with some of my business clients is that they think they only need to talk to me once a year or quarterly to file their quarterly taxes or something along that line. I wish that when they were about to make a major buying decision, just hit me with a quick email, a quick phone call, so that you can tell me what you're about to do so I can tell you how best to do it to protect your tax position going into the next year. I had a client that went out and thought that if he bought a 6,000 pound Model X Tesla, then that automatically, because it's considered commercial, it's a commercial vehicle, that automatically meant that he could write the whole thing off. Well, for some people, it does. But for everyone, it's not the same. And every tax situation is different based on whatever the story is that you're telling in your tax returns to the IRS. So as you're writing the story, you need to continue to talk with your tax professional to make sure that the expenses are characterized properly to benefit you the best. Just like you said, it might not have been a great idea for you to get for both you and your wife to get a W-2. Maybe one of you should have had a 1099. Maybe both of you should have had a 1099. Maybe you should have each had a 1099 and a W-2. But it's about thinking outside the box of what's normal to make sure that we are still in compliance, but at the same time, you're getting the best. It's not even the IRS's position that business owners should not benefit from being business owners. The only reason that we have the ability to write off the things that we can now, things like vacations, cars, healthcare, your son's wedding, his school loans, his baseball fees, all of the things that we can write off is because Congress is very generous, realizing that small business owners are really the bread and butter for America. If you lose a job as a small business owner, guess what? You can give more attention to your business and then make up your money that way. Not only that, but you can help with unemployment because you're hiring people to also be there and paying them so that they can stay off the unemployment rolls. So the government is going to they benefit us. They pay us literally to do this. But if you don't know where the money is, if you don't know which fish to pull out of the ocean that has the gold coin in their mouth, if you will, then you're leaving a lot of money on the table. So the first thing is make sure you choose a tax professional and not just a tax preparer, someone who's going to be with you throughout the year and not just up until April 15th.
Mm. I like that. Yeah, I was that one guy who would communicate every quarterly taxes season. It's like, hey, is this good? Yeah, you did great, man. Congratulations. Good. Thank you. Hey, is this good? Man, you guys did phenomenal. And another great congratulations. And little that I know, I could have probably done that by myself. And I had somebody that I would literally pay for pretty much waiting for the big whale to happen.
Right.
One thing that you've mentioned, which I want to dig into, the government is very generous and pays us to do these things. That
Yeah.
is something that I am fascinated to hear because generally speaking, 99% of my interviews for years, it's us against them. The government wants to come after us and we are the rebels that are supposed to. Help me understand how is the government, especially when it comes to the IRS, my friend and my partner that's willing to contribute or collaborate? Or is it, again, another key of ignorance that's missed?
Right. So there's a difference between the IRS and Congress, the government, right? Even though the IRS is a governmental agency, they don't necessarily write the rules. Congress does. So when Congress says, okay, we're going to give out a stimulus check, IRS, this is how you're going to administer this program. So Congress is saying we want to help Americans. IRS is just kind of like they're
fulfilling the orders.
Yeah, they're the front guy. They're the front guy. They're the ones on the front line making sure that things go the way that Congress said. So Congress says, okay, you want to start a business? Now, let's make sure it's a business and not a hobby, right? So you got to be doing it to make a profit, not just a way to hide money. You want to start a business? Cool. We'll give you $5,000 in startup expenses and just $5,000 for operational expenses when you start your business. So you've got $10,000. Start your business, and we'll give you $10,000 as a tax deduction off of your taxable income. That's one of the ways that they help. They say, you know what, you got to go to Walmart to get toilet tissue. Well, don't you have a business? Oh, why don't you go and get printer, an ink cartridge, and then just get the toilet tissue while you're there, and then you can write off the mileage for your trip to Walmart. Why? Because it's about what your purpose, what was your intent for going to Walmart. So as a business owner, we have to kind of change our mindset and the way that we think about this. I'm not going to Walmart for toilet paper. I'm going to Walmart for office supplies. And while I'm there, I'll grab my toilet paper.
Yeah.
Because now all that mileage is completely tax deductible. So there are hundreds of ways that if you just kind of change your mind, you can actually save money. And Congress, it's okay. It's all legitimate. The home business discount, right? Not discount, deduction. The ability to write off your home office at home, right? Your office at home.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to write it off is based on, the size of the house, the size of the office. Do you have hard furniture in there or soft furniture? Do you have a desk? Is there a trash can? Is this really an office? Well, the IRS said, yeah, you can write that off, and we're going to probably audit you. Home offices is a category that is really highly audited by the IRS. Now, we're not afraid of audits because all they want you to do is prove your expenses. If you're not lying, cheating, and stealing, you shouldn't have a problem with it, right? However, Congress also said, listen, we know that it's a little steep and the stipulations are crazy when it comes to writing off your home office stuff. If you will agree to take this simplified formulation, which gives you 300 square feet of your home, it's about $1,500, we won't question it at all. As long as you have a profit in your business, you can write it off that way. So they have all these things in place for us as business owners, but you just got to know that they're there. Ignorance is not bliss.
Let me tell you, I am fascinated with what I'm hearing right now, and it's very rare when it happens. In my line of business, I'm usually finishing people's sentences, or I find myself doing, "Oh yeah, no, yep, that makes sense. I heard it before." And I am in awe. And this is where I knew we were gonna get some chicken nuggets, golden nuggets. McDonald's is about to sue us for all of these nuggets. I did not anticipate that this is gonna be as good as. So it's probably safe to say, just like on point one, is to hire a tax expert that not only is familiar with Congress written laws on an annual basis, versus somebody who just knows how to get your taxes prepared and fulfilled. It's what we would say common sense, but common sense is not common knowledge, really. I am amazed. Okay, here's another piece that I would love for you to kind of educate. And social media has a lot of gurus, right? A lot of, as I call it, whiteboard teachers who want to say, like, here's how you do it. You do the trust and you register the LLCs and then you hide your money and then blah, blah, blah. Can you please just debunk the BS for us? What is like your absolutely no, get off your phone. Here's what you need to do in order to never get in trouble with the IRS, or like, please help me out, because there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of conflicting information. I could literally scroll for 2 minutes and one will contradict the one after it. So please help us out. What is the biggest no-nos? Please.
I wish that they were all required to do the disclaimer that says, this might not work for you. This may not work in your situation. I get messages from my clients all the time saying, can we do this? Can we do that? Can I pay for my wedding with my business? Your wedding was 2 years ago. Are you getting married again? Like, what are you talking about? Like, how does that even work? But so-and-so said, okay, well, go to so-and-so. Literally, I have told clients that before. Listen, I don't do shiesty stuff at all. Like, you will not get me to do shiesty stuff. So if that's what you want, you need to go over there. The bottom line is that it is unprofessional and it lacks integrity for me to sit here and say, you too never have to pay another tax. It's not true. Now, there were many years that I was able to create a scenario where my tax liabilities were minimum, sometimes even zero. But as you make more money and you have more things going on, the likelihood of you paying zero taxes is not great. You can pay as little as legally possible. That's what we want you to do. Give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, but not a penny more.
Mhm.
The reality is your mindset again as an entrepreneur has simply to be Uncle Sam is my business partner. Pay him his shut up money and go build your business.
I like that. That should be on a T-shirt. Uncle Sam, here's your shut up money.
Yes, literally, that's all it is. And when you think of it that way, it's kind of like, okay, well, I know out of this $100,000 that I make, I'm going to have to give maybe 8% to Uncle Sam, not 20% like the employee, because as a business owner, your tax rates you can bring that down, maybe $8,000 instead of the 20,000. But I'm
Yeah.
still going to have to give him something just so that he stays out of my house.
No, I get it. Let's dig into if in the case that I get myself into some kind of what to be perceived as trouble with the IRS. Like I get a letter, a notice saying, hey, this is an audit. We're expecting an interview. You know, that initial letter of like, my heart is sinking, right? What is your instruction to that individual, step 1, 2, and 3, whatever that may be? Because I remember when I called, first of all, you know, I didn't get a call back until a week later. And I was like, hey, man, like, this is important. Call me. You know, it's like one of those situations where you wish your CPA, which I learned, is somebody local around you that you can walk into the building, right, the office. But when I got a resolution team, this is again started about a year ago. I was told, do not communicate to the IRS. Give us the power of attorney and let us handle it for you.
Yes.
But what do you say in
Yes.
this, to initiate a resolutions case?
The first thing you do when you get a letter from the IRS is take a deep breath.
I remember that moment.
Take a deep breath and don't trip if it's the first letter, because there's probably 3 or 4 more coming behind it. So you have a little bit of time. What challenges me is when the client gets the letter on December 6th and has to respond somehow by January 6th, and I don't get the letter till December 27th. Yeah. That's going to cost you.
I'll tell you for a little giggle in here, a little side note. My wife, the first letter my wife saw, you know, because I already know I got the emotional intelligent component down, was like, it's nothing. Though inside I am a screaming little child, but it's like, it's nothing, right? My wife saw it and she's like, are you going to jail? I was like, what? What are you saying this for? She's like, the IRS. I saw the letter. I'm like, and the first thing that gets to mind is I'm going to jail. Yeah, it's an audit.
Yep. It's either, am I going to jail or are they going to take my house?
Yeah.
Those are the things I hear the most of the time. Please, I just don't want them to take my house. Okay, well, let's respond. Let's communicate.
Yeah.
The worst thing that you can possibly do is ignore it. So you read it. If it doesn't make sense to you, it's not something that you can deal with on your own or are comfortable, call your tax professional. Because remember, you're not using tax preparers anymore. You're not using people who are using a certain major company's software just to do the return and get your money. You're actually using someone who is a professional in the industry, has a track record, and actually stays in the same location year after year, right? You can reach out to that person because they're in the office year round. You know, they're not just seasonal, and send them a copy of the letter and say, what do we need to do with it? They will read it. They will let you know. And then you follow the steps that they lay them out. And you just continue to breathe through the process. Now, if in fact they don't respond, then you need to find someone who does. We have a program. If you owe the IRS more than $10,000, then we go through, we will pull the transcripts from the IRS directly. We have contact, we have access. We're going to pull every communication that they've sent you. And we're going to ask you to provide it also so that we can kind of line everything up, because it gives you something to do so that you're not stressing. You feel like you're part of solving the process. But we can also get those things from the IRS. And then we're going to lay it all out for you. We're going to say, okay, this is what they're saying. This is the truth of the matter. What do we need to do? We may need to amend the tax return from that year, and we can fix the problem just by fixing the mathematical error. Most audits are because of a mathematical error in the return. The second largest cause is simply random selection.
Wait, that is an actual thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me get this straight. Like I could be doing everything perfectly fine, and it could be a random selection?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I did not know there was a lottery in the IRS too. I love you, IRS. You're probably listening to this.
We respect the IRS. We understand what they're there to do. We want to play along. We just need them to play along with us, right?
So here's my question. This is the the question that most want to ask, and it's like taboo, right? And I'm going to ask it, by the way, the right place to find more information is easyincometexresolution.com, right?
For resolution services, yes.
For resolution services specifically, yeah, that's what I'm referring to. It's right on your screen. Make sure you visit that website if you are in a circumstance that requires resolution for your taxes. And God only knows, I wish I knew what I know now. But here's the thing. There are a lot of individuals, and I know for a fact in the network marketing professional, the side gig, the solopreneur, where they're told by somebody who knows nothing about taxes and business, but because they are a sponsor, upline sponsor monster, they're like, oh, let me tell you how you stay away from the IRS. And that was me. That's how I got into the circumstance back in 2012, that I had somebody who told me what I needed to do in order to stay out of the IRS issues, because I'm destined to be a top earner, Ali Mehdaoui. And again, we didn't know what we didn't know. In the case that I follow intentionally or not bad advice, and I am, look at me, I'm the rebel. I'm playing the IRS. They don't know that I'm doing this legally. I'm the hack. And then I get in trouble. What is the actual approach? Meaning, if I actually know I got away with it for a while, but I knew that what I was doing was a little sneaky and ultimately it could get me in trouble. Is that a different approach of breed, or hey, we really need to do something different?
Oh yeah. Well, what people don't realize, and this is like a secret, right? The IRS, in most instances, offers you a do-over. Literally, if you make a mistake on a return, even if they find it, you can literally amend that return and fix it. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to wash away all of your taxes and all of your penalties, and not the taxes, but the penalties and interest. They don't, you're going to have to pay whatever the resulting tax is. But there's some instances we've been even able to get the penalties reduced or wiped out completely. For instance, I had a gentleman whose mom passed. And he inherited the house. Him and his sister inherited the house. 3 years later, they sold the house. And there was this huge capital gain, almost $300,000. Based on his tax rate, he owed the IRS $100,000 because of that.
Sheesh.
If it had been a short-term gain. If it had been a long-term gain, closer to 50. Well, his tax preparer, not professional, told him, you don't need to list that. You don't even need to tell them that. So here we are, 3 years later, the IRS sends him a letter and says, you owe us $165,000.
Wait, you know me? Are you talking about me right now? That's my dollar amount. But go on.
$165,000. So he calls me and he's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? I said, well, first of all, don't go back to the person who did your taxes, because if they told you did not need to report this income, this is why we're in the problem that we're in right now. So I get the whole file. I go through it. I amend the return for that year, even though the IRS has already said you owe this money. Well, first of all, it's a long-term gain, not a short-term gain. So even the IRS's numbers were wrong. So we amended it. I got it down to $97,000, including interest and penalties. Then I said, listen, he's a veteran. He still works for the government, and he's never had a tax problem before. Can we just get this down to the regular taxes? His tax bill ended up being like $40,000 instead of $165,000 because we walked through the process. Did it take a long time? Absolutely. But the result is what we're after. So 45 versus 165, you decide which one you want.
No, I totally get it. I'm fascinated, by the way, with the information that you're sharing with us, and you can tell, it's not a gig for you. It's not just a business. It's actually something that you're passionate about, like having the small win for the little guy or the little gal.
Yes.
There are a lot of ridiculous amount of commercials, whether it's social media or ads, TV, whatever you want to. It's like the tax forgiveness. Can you please help us out here? Just debunk the marketing versus the reality, right? Like you hear a lot of shenanigans about the tax forgiveness, and it's marketed as like it doesn't matter how much taxes you owe or how bad it is, we'll get it all the way. Just reach us out. So
and that's not true. They shouldn't say that. They really shouldn't. And this is one of the things that I face in business all the time. Well, what makes you different from X? Well, we're not a big box company, right? You're talking about Walmart versus, mom and pop and 7 of our friends on the corner, which
Yep.
means that there's going to be a lot more individual attention. And when I'm going through a major issue, I need somebody I can pick up the phone and call and talk to that person the whole time. Somebody who's going to respond to my text messages, someone who's going to respond to my email. While they do have great success, it's because they have great numbers. You got a whole lot of people. You can definitely find, a few success stories in there. Not saying that they don't do what they claim. I'm just saying it could be very expensive, and I just don't like being one of a number. I want someone, like you said earlier, that I can literally get on a Zoom and have a conversation with face to face. Someone who knows that I have 4 kids, 3 grandkids, and 2 dogs, and I need my money. Someone who's going to walk it through. And then someone who has a system and a plan. So a lot of times it's just a conveyor belt. It's like, oh, this one just got on. It's kind of, what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the ambulance chasing attorneys. Oh, did you have an accident?
I know
Oh,
exactly what
blah,
you're
blah,
talking
and
about.
blah, blah. We'll get you $1 million. Will you? Really? So I had an accident and I called one of them and they wouldn't take my case. I called another one. I called 6 of them. They wouldn't take my case. And no one would tell me why until about 12 people down the road. And someone finally said, well, you were making a left turn. That's automatically your fault in North Carolina. You couldn't tell me that and save me some time and money and energy? And that's what we're here to do. We want you to bring us your challenge, bring us the situation, and let us just update you on our progress. We will ask you to sign and give us power of attorney to talk to the IRS on your behalf. Why? Because I don't want you to talk to them. You don't know what to say and what not to say. You are emotionally involved. You don't want anyone emotionally involved dealing with the IRS or any other government agency for that matter. You're not going to get what you feel like you want. We know the ins and outs. We know what you're entitled to. We know what they've done before. We know who answers the phone and to talk to and who not to. We even know based on the first few minutes of the conversation whether or not this is going to go well or whether or not we need to dial back and get somebody else who's having a better day, if you will. So I've never worked for a large big box company, so I can't speak to anything other than the number of people that come to us after being disappointed by a big box company.
See what I'm hearing. It's like the lawyer versus the paralegal. Like it's easy to confuse the both from the tone of we need to fill out this form and that form, but like there's a huge difference between a specialty lawyer versus a paralegal. I got one last question before we go on a break, and this is probably selfishly for me, but you're welcome. This is for all of our, for the last 2 years, we've had, if I were to guesstimate, close to $70,000 worth of invoices that never got paid, right? Those like billable hours. Yeah, I know it's been a crazy year and a half, Doc. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I mean, people see the accolades and the highlights and Mr. Mehdaoui this and Mr. Mehdaoui that. We got our butt kicked. I'm talking about like record 200K, that of losses. But it is what it is. It's part of business, right? Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. So here's my question. I have heard that there is a debt cancellation form 1099-C that if you, my client, failed to pay me as a business owner, I get to do that debt elimination or cancellation and say, hey, you no longer owe me. It's a wash. However, you owe the IRS now because I'm reporting that cancellation that you now have been forgiven for your debt. Therefore, you owe the IRS because that is now increase your income. Is that a factual? Educate, please.
On TikTok.
I'm about to go in right now.
You saw that on TikTok, right? You saw that on TikTok?
I probably have. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not sure where I saw it, but it's one of those, like, it's probably one of those weird social media guys who are just talking to talk. But please educate me.
Yes, I got that call too. So the 1099-C is the debt cancellation form that you're referring to. And typically what you're saying in terms of how it works is exactly how it works. However, it's used by financial institutions, not by everyday John.
See what I mean? That's the part that I'm talking about. They could have just said, by the way, this is for financial institutions. So Ali, stop watching this 17,000 times.
But what you can do,
talk to me.
You have to make a valiant effort to collect those funds. If in fact you're never able to collect them, then you can take them as a loss because the work was actually done, the expense was actually created, the invoice was never paid. You would end up canceling the invoice and taking it a loss in your business so that it would write down the amount of income. But you have to keep good records, and you have to be able to show where you attempted to collect the debt. So for me, because I have this happen from time to time, I literally I write the letters, I send the invoices, I send the late invoices, and then I write a dunning letter. I have my law firm write a letter saying this is an attempt to collect a debt. And if they still don't do it, I have a decision to make. Do I want to go to small claims